Kobe Bryant was easily one of the best players to ever play the game of basketball. Starting off as a teenager with the Los Angeles Lakers, a young Kobe had limited chances to showcase his talents. But all of it changed after a couple of seasons as Bryant burst into the scene as one of the most exciting players to watch in the game. Be it his incredible repertoire of scoring the basketball with his incredible fadeaway jumpers and his ferocious dunks, or his ability to lock down the best players of the opposing team. The Black Mamba did it all. As all the other stars have in the past, Kobe learned from the best. Perhaps the biggest inspiration and influence that Bryant had on his game was from the GOAT, Michael Jordan. Kobe was perhaps the closest to a reincarnation of Jordan. Be it his fadeaway jumpers or his ability to lock down guards, Kobe mirrored his incredible basketball skills to that of MJ. Jordan even claimed that he was proud to see Bryant use his iconic fadeaway. Not only were the two closest friends, but Bryant also had immense respect for the impact Jordan had on his game. In a post-game press conference back in 2016, Kobe was asked whether any player had beaten him one-on-one. The Lakers legend unsurprisingly had an iconic response.
Who beat you in one-on-one if it ever happened in practice?
No. I'm not trying to beat you, but that's what I do. You know what I mean? So if there's going to be a player that beat me, retired, on that last shot in Utah, and that hit. About it.
While we could never see a prime Michael Jordan facing off against a prime Kobe Bryant, given how close their relationship was, Bryant and MJ often discussed who would be victorious in a one-on-one battle. In an appearance on Jimmy Kimmel Live, Bryant revealed a discussion between him and Jordan about them facing off against each other.
The last time we had dinner, he was talking about my year in 1991 versus your peak year. I would have kicked your ass. I said, Mike, come on now. Enjoy the salad.
But it was not only the discussions about who the best player was among the two. Jordan and Kobe often communicated with each other in their toughest moments as well. After a crushing defeat to the Boston Celtics in the 2008 finals, Kobe, who gave it his all in the finals, asked MJ how to defeat the super team of the Celtics. Jordan gave him some honest advice by stating that Kobe just had to figure it out as he had all the tools at his disposal. 2 championships in the next 2 years certainly were the fitting result. For years, Michael and Kobe had been protective of their relationship. Jordan would call Bryant his little brother, Bryant would call Jordan his big brother, and they'd praise each other's work ethic and accomplishments. Only a few people had a sense of just how close Jordan and Bryant had become. If you just watched them interact in a game, Kobe always was like a magnet going toward Michael, said former Los Angeles Lakers general manager Jerry West. Usually Michael didn't really interact with a lot of players when he was on the court. He'd just play, but for some reason, he had this affinity for him, said West. Their friendship began just like Jordan said it did.
It was a nuisance, if I can say that word. But that nuisance turned into love over a period of time.
Bryant pestered him enough that Jordan finally gave in and engaged. That dynamic was illustrated in episode 5 of The Last Dance, the 10-part docuseries on Jordan's final season with the Chicago Bulls in 1998. The episode featured Bryant and Jordan at the 1998 All-Star Game, with Jordan both bemused and flattered by the playful, admiring teenager who was determined to come after him.
I don't think guys want to take everybody one-on-one. Kobe. Yeah. He don't let the game come to him. He just go out there and take it.
The truth is, this had been happening from the moment Bryant entered the NBA in 1996. As early as I can remember, whenever the Lakers played the Bulls, Kobe would wait outside the tunnel for Michael to leave, said Tim Grover, a personal trainer who worked with Jordan in Chicago and later with Bryant in Los Angeles. And Michael was always the last person to leave the locker room. He took forever, but Kobe would wait and wait for him, and the rest of the Lakers players would be on the bus, waiting on Bryant, a rookie, who was waiting on Michael. But Kobe was like, the bus is going to have to wait, because I don't know when I'm going to get this opportunity. Grover said Jordan generally took an hour to emerge from the locker room. He'd get treatment, study the box score, shower, get dressed in the training room, and then finally emerge once the crowd had died down. There was literally nobody else in the building, Grover said. Lakers security would be like, come on, Kobe. The bus is leaving. Bryant didn't care. He'd wait as long as he had to. And when Jordan came out from the locker room, always immaculately suited, Bryant would start peppering him with questions about footwork or turnaround jumpers. Grover would hang back and let Jordan and Bryant have their privacy as they walked out together. Sometimes he'd notice them stop, as Jordan would demonstrate a particular skill for Bryant. There's a bunch of other athletes that came up to Michael that wanted him to mentor them, Grover said. But when they found out how difficult it was to maintain that intensity and to be that relentless, most of them faded out. but Kobe kept it up. The more information that Michael gave him, Kobe got even more thirst. Bryant would consume every piece of advice, work through every lesson Jordan offered. Then, like an eager student, he'd report back and ask for a new assignment. When Jordan gave Bryant his number, Grover knew that really meant something. He had seen Jordan give other players the number to the team's security guards or a friend, who would then not put them in touch with him. It's not that Jordan didn't care or want to help. There's just only so much time and so few people who were actually capable of doing something with his advice. You had to earn the right to have that conversation, Grover said. So with Kobe, Michael would have not taken the next call if he didn't see something in him. You can't learn if you don't ask, Bryant said in 2019, during the interview he did for The Last Dance.
It was a rough couple years for me coming to the league, because at the time the league was so much older. It's not as young as it is today. So nobody was really thinking much of me. I was a kid that shot a bunch of air balls, you know what I mean? And at that point, Michael provided a lot of guidance for me. But on top of that, he said, if you ever need anything, give me a call. What you get from me is from him. I don't get 5 championships here without him, because he guided me so much and gave me so much great advice.
When Jordan retired after the 1998 season, Bryant continued to seek Jordan out. But eventually Jordan came to him. The first time was when Lakers coach Phil Jackson asked Jordan to meet with Bryant and talk to him about how to be patient playing the triangle system. Later, when Jordan returned for the 2001 season as a member of the Washington Wizards, he'd visit Bryant and Jackson in the Lakers' locker room after games. That might seem like a small detail, but for Jordan to visit the opposing locker room was an enormous sign of respect. By the time Jordan was in Washington, now all of a sudden the Lakers have won a couple of titles and Kobe's really established who he is as a player. In 2007, when Bryant's knees began to ache, he hired Grover, Jordan's trainer, and asked him to help him rebuild his body the way he had done when Jordan came back from his first retirement. That's when Grover started to see some key differences in the two men.
Kobe worked out harder. Michael worked out smarter.
Yep.
All right, Kobe wanted to know every single detail. He wanted to know why the reps, why you were doing this exercise, why we're working out at this particular time, why am I eating this? He wanted to know every single detail. Why would I change the order of stuff? Just that Michael was like, hey, I hired you, I trust you, I don't want this to be my focus. Just if I question you, make sure you have an answer. Don't guess. If you don't know, go ask somebody and figure it out. But both of them extremely, extremely intense.
Both men had a relentless drive and work ethic, but Bryant seemed to come from a different well. Michael knew when enough was enough, Grover said.
With Michael, I could get him to stop. He knew when enough was enough. He was like, this is what I need. My hardest transition with Kobe was getting him to stop. It was like, all right, your body needs time to recover. We got to stop doing this. You're actually working out too much. All right, we cannot shoot 1,000 shots today. We got to cut that in half. Kobe's mentality was, I got to do more. I got to do more. I got to do more. Because if you feel like you're trying to close that gap in the chase, and if you feel like you're doing less, that gap in your mind actually widens. And I had to kind of convince him, hey, this is the way Michael did it. This is the way you want to be as close to him as possible. These are the things that he did. I'm not trying to tell you to do exactly the way he did it, but these are some of the things that we implemented in his career that actually allowed him to have extreme longevity and play at the highest level.
As Bryant approached the end of his playing career, he started asking different questions. Was there anything he could do after basketball that would fill him with as much passion and purpose as the game had? He didn't want to retire and unretire twice as Jordan had. He didn't want to leave the game but still be close to it as a coach or an owner. He needed something totally new to throw himself into, not something that reminded him of his past glories. Once I tore my Achilles, Bryant said in 2016, I needed to hone in on what the purpose is going to be. I'd been searching for 15 years, but now, the rubbers got to hit the road. I'd be lying in bed with my cast, thinking, you gotta figure out what you want to do next. Because I'll be damned if I retire without a purpose. That's not going to happen to me. He started talking to Jordan about it. Who else would understand how hard it was to let go? Bryant started working on something completely different the last few years of his career. He'd call authors and directors. He asked to visit the set of Modern Family and sit in on writers' rooms. He kept journals of movie and television projects he'd like to work out. He fleshed out characters and story arcs for children's books. He was bursting at the seams with ideas and concepts he'd put into production as soon as basketball was over. When he learned that Jordan had the rights to footage shot of his final season, Bryant commissioned a camera crew to film his final season. Bryant even inquired about producing the documentary on Jordan's final season. But this was Jordan's story to tell, and he dedicated episode 5 of The Last Dance to Bryant, who died along with 8 others in a helicopter crash on January 26th. I admired him, Jordan said in his eulogy, because of his passion. You rarely see someone who's looking and trying to improve each and every day. Not just in sports, but as a parent, as a husband. Often when two players are compared to each other, we generally do not see them being the closest. But that's what made the relationship between Jordan and Kobe beautiful. Two greats who became brothers and will be forever linked to each other. Tell us in the comments, what is your favorite moment of these two GOATs? And if you like this video, hit the like button and subscribe for more. For even more basketball content, subscribe to our other channels, Free Dawkins and Squad Dawkins, and follow us on social media